Hi there again, welcome back. My name is Nicole with Morning Chores. Today's video, we are going to be comparing different ways that you can fence in your chickens, whether you are free ranging, doing a semi-permanent fence, or a permanent structure to keep those chickens safe. I'm also going to be discussing what we've chosen to do. We've decided to make a few changes, and it'll be exciting to see how those changes unfold and if it's for the better or for the worse. So if you're someone that's considering chickens, or maybe you've had chickens and your system is just not working for you, there are lots of ways to keep your chickens safe when it comes to fencing. So today we're going to talk about the different ways you can do that, and I'm mainly going to talk about what I have chosen to try. So I'm not going to speak much on things I haven't tried because I just don't feel like I have the credibility to discuss it. But a lot of my references will be coming from this book here. This book is The Small Scale Poultry Flock by Harvey Usry. This is a great book, and he has a whole section in here on pasturing your flock, what kind of fencing to choose, and he has his preference. He, I think, prefers an electric fence, but he talks about all the different methods of keeping your chickens safe, the pros and cons of everything. So if you want more information beyond what I'm going to discuss, I highly recommend this book, and there'll be a link to purchase it in the description box below. First, let's talk about free ranging. Free ranging is something I briefly discussed in my top 5 homesteading myths video, which I'll also link down below, but I thought I'd go in a little more detail about free ranging, and we'll start with that and then work our way to the more permanent fencing option. Free ranging is a big buzzword on the internet and in the homesteading community, and there's a lot of talk about how you need to free range your animals because it's healthier and it's better for them, and there's lots of pros and cons to free ranging. Here, most of what I've learned in regards to free ranging is what I've just tried out myself. Sure, I've read things in books like the book I just recommended. I've watched things on the internet, videos, but most of what I've learned is just from experience. So let's talk about the pros, and then we'll get into the cons. The pros of free ranging is it does promote a very healthy lifestyle for your chicken in regards to health and exercise. When they free range, they're getting lots of exercise, and they're also eating very nutrient dense food because they're eating lots of dark leafy greens, which is what makes the yolks that golden, dark, almost orange color. Also, they eat things like grubs and worms, which is full of lots of protein. So overall, for their diet and their exercise, it is great. Also, there was a period of time where I free ranged full time, and I noticed that it cut my feed bill in half. So it can save you money in regards to feed. Now, it may cost you money in property damage in other ways, so it may not fully save money in the bigger picture, but when it comes to your feed costs, it literally cut my feed bill in half, and I was really amazed by that because they're getting most of their diet from your yard, which is pretty cool. So I think it's good to at least know that, because if feed costs continue to rise, or if it gets to a point where you cannot access good quality feed, you may have to resort to that just to feed your chickens. So it is a good thing to know and understand. Another benefit to free ranging is it is fun to kind of have chickens wandering around. They're fun to watch, and they provide a lot of entertainment for kids. So it is kind of very picturesque when you're looking at your property and you see chickens roaming around in the yard. So that's kind of a fun thing. Now that we've discussed the benefits of free ranging, let's talk about the cons. The first con is chickens get into everything. They will get into your flower beds, your garden if that's not fenced in. My chickens will dig at the foundation of my house. They get up on my porches and poop all over my porches. They will get into the garage. I have found chickens roosting in different places up in our garage. We used to have an outdoor cat, and the chickens would eat the cat food. They poop all over the yard, so if you like going barefoot, you will be stepping in chicken poop. Like, it's just gonna happen, okay? It's happened to me, it's happened to I think every member in my family. The other con to full-time free ranging is it's much harder to protect them from predators. Things like hawks, foxes, raccoons, possums, things like that. Now, raccoons and possums we've only dealt with during the night, and they're already in their chicken coop for the night. Hawks, thankfully, we haven't really had any issues with hawks. We only had one incident with a hawk, but I do see them flying around. So if you are prone to hawks in your area, it will be much more difficult to protect them when they're free ranging. Another predator that I did not mention is dogs. Dogs become an issue when you're free ranging. We've had dogs and we've had to be extremely mindful of where the dog is and where the chickens are, and when the chickens were free ranging, it was very stressful. Currently, we have a dog who, she likes to corral the chickens. She has not killed one, but she likes to play with them, and I'm sure if she played with one long enough, it would not be a good ending for the chicken. But for now, we found a solution to that problem, so it's no longer an issue for us. But if you are free ranging and you have a dog, or you have neighbors that have dogs, that is a huge concern in regards to predators, because most dogs don't like chickens. Another negative to free ranging your chickens is it could decrease egg production, mainly because they will lay eggs in other places on the property except the nesting boxes, and it might be difficult for you to find that spot. And the book that I recommended, he talks about this, about how you have to find that spot, and if you do find that let's say they're laying their eggs under a tree, don't take all the eggs, or they'll think a predator got them and they will find a new spot. So leave a couple eggs there, or you can even take some wooden eggs and leave those there, so that way they know it's a safe spot to continue laying their eggs. But it just might be difficult to find them if they are not laying them in the nesting boxes and they're laying them in different places on your property. Another negative to full-time free ranging is unless you have a large piece of property, we have about 5 acres here, and what I found when I free range the chickens is that, especially if you're doing it full-time every day, is they get braver and braver and braver, and they will move further and further away from the coop. I would find them on my neighbor's property on one side. On the other side, we have our yard, a big easement of brush, and then the neighbor's yard. And one time that neighbor had to drive over to my house and tell me that her chickens were way over in her yard, and it took me over 40 minutes to corral them back through the brush to my property. So if you have neighbors close by, it's really not conducive to free range, especially if those neighbors do not want chickens on their property. So that is an issue for us. I just find that when I free range each day, they just get a little braver and move a little further away from the coop during the day. And it just makes it difficult because I have to constantly keep tabs on it and just make sure they're staying on the property. Now, if you live on 100 acres and you have your coop right in the middle, then more than likely you don't have to worry about this. But if you're living on a smaller piece of property, as I am, then it is a concern. So now that we've discussed the pros and cons of free ranging, let's talk about the semi-permanent fence. The semi-permanent fence is something that we have used since the beginning. It's a fence that you can move, and what's nice about this is that you can set it up and the chickens can kind of free range in that fencing area, and then you can move it in a few weeks and they'll have new fresh grass to free range on. So let's discuss the pros and cons of the semi-permanent fence. The pros are that you kind of get the best of both worlds. You give your chickens the opportunity to free range in a contained space, and because it's a movable fence, you can move it to fresh new grass or pasture after a few weeks, and it's like they have a whole new space where they can roam and they can eat. And then what you do is you just keep moving that fence. So it gives them a more contained, safe space to free range. It can protect them from predators, although if you don't electrify it, some predators can still get in. And it's a great option because it's affordable. The fence is very affordable, and I'll link the one that we have in the description box below. We ordered it from Premier One. And no, they're not promoting this video. I just really like their products. Another pro is that it's just easily doable. I mean, my kids would help me move it, my husband would move it, and I could move it by myself. So it's just a really easy, nice option. The cons are that you still will not have protection from hawks. They can still swoop down and get a chicken if that is an issue in your area. They also won't fully keep out predators unless you electrify it. If you choose to electrify it, that is another cost, but you are adding another layer of protection, not only against predators, but also against the chickens getting out. Because we have found with the semi-permanent fence that they can still get out sometimes. Like, we have one chicken who figured out how to get under the fence because it's not super tight. I mean, you pull it as taut as you can, but sometimes over time with the wind and everything, it'll get a little loose, and they learn how to get under the fence. We also have chickens that fly over the fence, and electrifying it wouldn't help in our situation because I've watched the chickens and they literally fly over it like this without even touching the fence. And yes, you can clip their wings. We have tried that as well, and they still fly over. So I don't know if we didn't clip their wings correctly. I think you also have to do it every 6 weeks. We tried it for a period of time and it didn't work. That chicken still would fly over. So the semi-permanent fence is good if you don't have any dogs and you are willing to move the fence every couple of weeks. That's another con, is you have to remember to move the fence. Otherwise the chickens will just eat all the grass down to the dirt, and then you'll just have a dirt patch, which isn't terrible. I mean, you can feed them scraps from the yard and things like that, but the whole point of the semi-permanent fence is that you move it every couple of weeks so they have fresh new grass or pasture to eat on. So if you're not doing that, then the semi-permanent fence may not be for you. The other nice thing about the semi-permanent fence is you have options. You can electrify it with solar, or you can not electrify it like we did and just use it. And yeah, it worked fine, but now that we have a dog, it's no longer an option for us. And like I said, chickens fly out of it every day, and I'm always corralling them back in. So as I said, we have always used a semi-permanent fence with the option of full-time free ranging in the yard, but we've recently changed that. So let's head down to the coop and I'll show you what we've installed, and then I'll talk about the pros and cons of a permanent fence. Behind me here is a permanent chicken coop with a roof. We decided to opt for the permanent fencing method. I can only really discuss the whys, and I will go through a list of potential pros and cons because this is new to us. We have tried it out for, it'll be a week on Monday. So it's still fairly new. But we decided to go to the permanent chicken run that we had attached to our chicken coop that we already had, because it was much more affordable than fencing the garden in. And really, the number one thing I was trying to accomplish, there were two things I needed to accomplish with the chickens. I needed to keep them out of my garden, especially during the growing season. And I also needed to protect them from our dog because we just recently got a dog, and like I said, she likes to corral the chickens. I have caught her trying to play with the chickens. She has not thankfully killed one, but I don't think I'd put it past her, and I don't want to worry about it. I also am just tired of having to corral chickens back to the coop during the day because, like I said, every day at least 2 to 4 chickens get out, and they're all over the place getting into things. You know, I have raised beds that are not fenced in up by the house, so I had to replant a lot of things because they'd get in there and dig, or they'll head over to the neighbor's property. There's just a lot of just little mini stresses during the day in regards to the chickens. So it was mainly, yes, to keep them safe, keep them out of my garden. Those are the two things. And so we had looked at fencing in the garden, and finally my husband's like, we have this all wrong. We should be working to permanently fence in the chickens. And then also we added the roof here to keep them from flying out because the chickens would fly over the fence. So the fence really wasn't serving its full purpose. So now that we have the roof, they are completely enclosed. And I'm really excited to see how it goes. So far, it has been a huge relief. Both my husband and I are like, why didn't we do this sooner? Because the other thing we noticed is every morning we had to let the chickens out, and every night we had to put them away. Meaning we had to come down and close the door to the main coop. So that way predators wouldn't get in there, mainly possums, raccoons, and foxes at nighttime. And now that we have this permanent run on here, we don't have to lock the chickens away at night, and we don't have to let them out in the morning. It's great. It's just eliminated that extra chore of every morning and every night, and it will also be easier if and when we go on vacation, we have someone watching things on the property and taking care of the animals, it'll be much easier for them because all they'll really have to do is make sure they have water and food and collect the eggs. They're not having to come to our house both in the morning and at night to let the chickens out and put them away. So it's been like so much better just overall having that, because all I just have to do is make sure they have food and water, and then I just collect the eggs usually in the evening, and that is it. So it is really eased up our workload, and it's also just taken away all those little minor stresses of the dog, predators, chickens roaming onto the neighbor's property, chickens getting into things that they shouldn't. Like, all that is just completely gone, and it's great. The only con that I'm really concerned about at this time is, will this affect their health in any way? That's the only thing I'm concerned about. I am planning on giving them allotted free range time, probably in the late summer, early fall. The winter time, I mean, if there's snow on the ground, they're not coming out of their coop, but if there's no snow, they'll come out. So I'll probably let them free range sporadically through the winter and then in early spring. So the only time they're really not gonna get free range time is June, July, and August, mainly because of the garden and all that. But overall, so far, I think this is gonna be a huge win for us. And I ended up repurposing our semi-permanent fence and put it around the garden, mainly to deter deer. We do have a lot of deer that come in the area, and they have eaten some things. So far they don't really mess with the garden, but I have caught them walking around in there, so I just don't even want to risk it. So I'm really thankful that we were able to purchase this, and it was much cheaper than getting a permanent garden fence. But I was also able to repurpose the semi-permanent fence and put that around the garden to protect the crops. I hope this video was helpful in kind of defining the difference between free range, semi-permanent fencing, and permanent fencing, and there's even options all in between. I didn't even get into chicken tractors where you move the whole coop around your yard. I mean, that's a whole nother option. I personally have never tried it. I know people that use that option and they love it, and that's also explained in the book that I recommended earlier in the video. I think also there's a lot of variables when it comes to having chickens or just animals in general. It really depends on your property, the layout, the size, what other animals do you have on the property, what's your situation. There's so many variables, and I think that's why it just looks different for everyone. But I'm hoping that today's video can help you make better decisions, because I say if you have more information, you can make a better decision, right? I hope you guys can get out there and enjoy the summer, although if you're over in Australia, I know you guys are in winter, but summer is here, and get out there, enjoy that sun, and hopefully have your gardens in. So now we're just kind of sitting back and waiting for all of those good things to come on so we can eat fresh sliced tomatoes on our cheeseburgers, and we can have summer squash fried up in olive oil with mushrooms, or we can eat those fresh green beans and decorate our tables with fresh cut flowers. All the wonderful things that summer has to offer. Hope you guys have a wonderful week, and we'll see you on the next video.